Hello, hello. Good time of day, everyone. Well, this is going to be a little interesting today. Chat is dead. For no apparent reason, OBS refuses to capture any sort of browser. So my standard form of capturing chat is very, very dead. Nothing I can do about it. Didn't help that I was attempting to set up my camera better, but that doesn't matter at all. I should probably use blue. 1 second. Color masking, color masking. What would I do without you? Should probably actually learn how to... No, please go down. Should probably learn how to properly figure out the whole transparency system that they have for VTuber Studio, but today is not that day. Tomorrow doesn't look good either. So anyway, let me jump into filters and change this chroma key. Good enough. We live on scuff. Anyways, so today I'm going to be looking at old pixel art and figuring out what the heck I'm going to do with it. Now, I've generally actually attempted to ape Dragon Quest style, but I've looked at other things. So without further ado, I'm just going to give a quick rundown of actually how the Nintendo Entertainment System does things, because I generally think in this fashion. So let me just turn on the grids and get them to a size. 16 is what I want. So over here I have one of the NES palettes. Now, unlike most systems that we would think of today, which could use any color they want and just like slot them into a slot, the NES only had, as being an 8-bit system, only had so many colors for its palettes, and even beyond that, it only allowed 4 per sprite. Now, the thing with this is, it was system dependent on what actually got pushed to the screen, and then the TV then screwed it up a little bit more. So nobody has accurate NES palette. They can get close. There is somewhat, as this is showing, common ideas of it. Like, if I load this one, you can see the color selection is a little different, and they don't have, I think both have 2 blacks for no apparent reason. I don't know why they lost that, but is what happened. Anyway, I'll stick with this one. Whoops, that's the wrong button. So anyway, we have this. Now, as I said before, there are 2 types of sprites. There is the standard sprites, and then there are the background sprites. Background sprites are 32 by 32. Regular sprites are 16 by 16 and can only have 4 colors, including transparency. What that means is you effectively only have 3 colors. There are a few things that cheat on that. The one that everybody talks about is Mega Man, because it uses another sprite to go on top of it. But then you get into weird things like, how to put it? You get into weird things like a sprite flicker, because the NES could only have, I think, 8 sprites on screen on the same line. So if you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I think the next one would start flickering. And that had to be programmed in by the programmers, which you tried to avoid. Now the background sprites, those were static and stayed, well, in the background. And they had to be 32 by 32, and each 32 by 32 chunk had to share the same color palette. So you could change what color palette you wanted, but then everything in there would have to be the same. I'm just doing something a little dumb right here. But yeah, you had to have like, there was no transparency on that. I don't know about a static background and if that was used in any games, but yeah. So you had this. That means you couldn't have this half be two different, be like blue for this, because then this would have to be blue. Now you could do some weird things like scan lines as you go across the screen, blitting everything. You send an update to change the color palette, but that's neither here nor there. So you had two types of sprites. Background sprites, which were 32 by 32 tiles, and foreground sprites, which were 16 by 16. Both had a 4-color palette. And the palette was interpreted by the system as to how it should be displayed, and then got mucked up more by what TV model you had. So that's why nobody gets the colors right. So all that aside, let's actually move on to something fun, and I have some sprites from Sprite Resourcer, because everybody goes to Sprite Resourcer. And let's start with, there we go, Zelda. Link, the very first one. So, yes, but ripped by them on Sprite Resourcer. Think of it what you may be. And I would actually say that this isn't part of Link's sprite, but its own sprite in general. And as I said, 16 by 16. They are using gray as a color to represent transparency, but let me just grab that. Yep, 16 by 16. Throw it in this window. Get rid of this. It just so happens that's the same gray as the default tile in the top left corner. Lovely. Okay. And this, we could create a palette from this. Load palette from sprite. As soon as I remember where it is. New palette from sprite, that's what it was. And you'll see there's only 4 colors going on. So this is where things get really weird, because nowadays we do a lot more with this. Even if we had 4 colors, we do a lot more. I'm actually thinking of the Peach Sprite Challenge. I'm going to look for a quick image of that. Because somebody had a really good breakdown, like a sampling of that trend that went on, because old Princess Peach was... Yeah, there it is. Okay, I'll bring that up in a minute, but by actually getting to the spreadsheet. But as you can see, very rough, not refined at all. But it has, like, you have the same amount to work with as any other sprite of this size. Until you get a little weird. Well, of course you would. Okay. So the main thing about it is, there's a 2-walk cycle. This is the sort of thing I want to get into. And it keeps the upper half the same. I don't know if they did anything weird with, I might as well copy you over. I don't know if they did anything weird with space and that they, like, basically reused this. But, yeah. 1 second. Let me get you up. A little thrashing right now. I'm trying to figure out things to say, but, okay. New frame. Cut you down. Oh, it actually is a slightly different color. Okay. Just delete that. Set your frames to... I don't know, 300. So, they kept as much the same as possible because back then, sprite animation is 2-step. They don't have as much memory as they would later in the SNES, and they generally didn't want to waste time. Because, hey, these aren't exactly, you know. The most budgeted projects, like now. No, I don't have a Peach one up. I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah. So all they wanted was they focused on having this elf head, having a little bit of tunic. They don't even show the back of this, like the bottom of this. Like, it's a one-piece tunic. You don't even see his legs. You see his boots only. I would say actually they did a little bit of interesting stuff with that part right there, because they bob his head up and down. So you have to show some amount of life. Like, some things have to stay static in order for you to, get these done fast. Some of these some parts have to move in order to show, like, it's doing something. And for left and right, they just flipped this. Because the NES had, when you bled it to screen, or else when you put it into some sort of register, or I guess you'd call it register, in memory somewhere, you could say flip the sprite or rotate the sprite. Because when Link dies, he just spins around in 90-degree angles. And there is no sprite for each one of those angles. They just rotate the sprite when they bled it. And these swords, it's really funny because, as you can see, this is Link's actual sprite. And that sword is just coming off the edge. And that's its own sprite itself. Why? Because over here, you can see that it's a different color palette. And they're just dropping this right on top of it to make it look like that. And it gets even a little more funny on the side, where they can just pretty much draw the whole thing. I think it's actually being rotated. It might be rotated, I'm not sure. But anyways. Yeah, I think it's being rotated, but I'm not sure why there's that extra pixel there when there isn't an extra pixel on this side. I think maybe there's a bit of, yeah, it looks like they might not have put in the proper one, or did it by hand, or there's an actual mistake on the sheet. But once again, chunky pixels, you just got to show what you got to show. They didn't have any real refinement or ideas of how to properly do this, besides some arcades, which, once again, were primitive in that they're still figuring out how to do sprites. And they have a very limited palette and very limited things they can do. Looking kind of cool there, Link. Okay. And there goes the furnace. Don't have it, as I said, don't have any examples of changing things up. But I will now actually pull up NES Sprite Resourcer Super Mario. I wasn't going to look at this one, but I had only just remembered. I don't think they... Oh, there it is. Okay. Copy image. This one I'll go over a little bit. Shout outs to you, man. So this is something that's actually built into the NES. They have two types of sprite modes. They have big sprites, and then just you put a sprite on the screen. Big sprites were used for like beat 'em ups and Super Mario World, where Big Mario is actually laid out like, whoops, sorry there, is laid out like this in memory. And pretend I got it correctly. And all big mode does is says, at this point, print this big sprite, and it'll grab this and the next part of it, and then blend it like going up and down. It's there to save resources and make things faster, and it's kind of a cornerstone of all this. Now Mario, because they're thinking that they took it from the arcade, they had more of an idea of what they wanted to do, and they already had, like, stuff available to give a few more frames. Zelda was made from whole cloth. Super Mario had the Donkey Kong cabinet, and I think the Mario had an actual cabinet. The Versus mode that was on the original NES card, I think. But a lot smoother, and something I wouldn't really try. I think the whole reason why he has a hat had come up was that they didn't know what to do with his hair. That might be a rumor, though. But yeah, here you can see them being a little dynamic with the legs. Giving a little feel. Foot up. And the real thing here is that you could use this for left foot back or right foot back. You can't tell which side is forward with the bottom half of the sprite. Otherwise, top half pretty much stays the same. I'm not even sure if he leans in until this one right here. And I wouldn't be able to tell what this frame is trying to convey without the rest of it. There is a rule in animation that exactly half your frames minus one can be bad. By bad, I don't mean like absolutely horrible. They can be a little scuffed. But as long as you have two good frames around it, you're good. I think this might be stopping. Could be. This is swimming over here. Then we have an air bubble. And the fireball just rotates. I'm not sure if they actually had it like this in memory. I am pretty sure that they just used the hardware stuff to rotate it. Not sure what's going on there. And it's real interesting that they actually had grow animation. So they have this ugly little thing right here. Oh, wait. Actually, they say it's an animation. What they're doing is that they're just taking the sprite and putting it right on top of the other Mario sprite. And it just covers it up. So it's literally halfway between it because you're putting it down 8 pixels. Nice technique there. Nobody notices. And Luigi is just a palette swap. And these are the weird glitch ones that have come up. Neither here nor there. Okay. Now we can talk about Princess Peach because I have that one up. Okay. At least I thought I had that one up. There we go. This is actually more of the object page because it has all these, and I think this is by the same guy. Where are you? There you go, man. Yeah. Like, back on the NES, all font was text. They didn't have an internal font pack for anything, so you had to waste memory putting in the text, and usually most things had a lot of wasted memory. So, some simple animation things. You would think there'd be a few more frames, but there isn't. They just repeat this over and over again, and you never tell the difference. I like always looking at in-betweens, because every once in a while you find one that's really weird. I'm not sure, but they actually had some names for them. But I was saying, like, in-between. Like this sucker right here. Are you the start of a run? Which is a kind of weird thing. Are you the start of a jump? What are you? Because like it looks like you want to fall forward like that. But yeah. Anyways. So Princess Peach is a single sprite that is as tall as a toad. Because as I said, this is using big sprite mode, or tall sprite mode, whatever it was. So they just slapped together two 16 by 16 horizontally. Or vertically, sorry. They're laid out horizontally in memory, but they're vertical in this. So This is Princess Peach. And a bit ago, people realized, wait, we could do better with this. Because as I said, you are free to do whatever you want. Oh, here's a sneaky thing about Princess Peach. That's a transparency. Because the background that she was always on was black, you could use transparency as black. Sure, please do. That sounds interesting. Um, it was a while ago. This one guy tweets about Mario resources and sprites and all that sort of stuff, and and the characters actually have names at certain parts. Because when they load up, it says Mario in the corner or Luigi, and some of them are actually get a name put into that. I think that's what it was. But anyways, so this caused a thing a while ago. Because people looked at this sprite and went, what the heck? Couldn't they have done better? And so, given this, because it's just literally, hey, we need a woman here with a crown. I guess red hair works. Or brunette, I guess you could say it is. It's definitely a brown. But it's supposed to be a red because, lips are red. And you have your very basics. It's like, it's not that far off of what Big Mario is like. Though Big Mario has a much larger nose. And what they did within the palettes, actually, and sizes, is quite interesting. Because this one goes all out on reusing the background. And then they use a little color cheat right here about surrounding this with mostly black, so this looks slightly darker. This one goes more into showing more human proportions and, sexy leg, I guess. And this one just uses highlights everywhere. And then a little bit more in that. And it all is occurring in the same space as this. I don't know, maybe some of them cheat. I don't exactly have the proper thing here. But they could have done this back then. But they probably didn't want to spend maybe the hour or so making the sprite. Because they literally don't have the time back then. These were really rushed games compared to our standards. And the artwork for them was not done in years. We have a year to make all the artwork, or half a year. They had possibly weeks. And then it was debugging it and trying to use the assets. Old games have a lot left on the floor, especially in Japan. Because Japan had a really interesting pipeline in the NES era and the SNES era. Where the artists basically just made whatever the heck they wanted. Well, the programmers made the engine with, stand-ins or early art they got from the art team. This is notoriously true in JRPGs. And then they just sort of merged them all at the end in order to make the game. So you have, still in files, unused sprites you can find every once in a while of, entire enemies. And you're like, why weren't they in there? Sometimes they were in there. Sometimes they were just made and still on the sheet. And then they never got implemented because they filled their quota. They didn't have enough time. Whatever. It's also why you have, the literal D&D grab bag of just weird, random, generic enemies. Because the artist just went wild. Interesting times. I'm just going to browse through these, read them at your own thing. This one I do like. They really abused the skin color as hair highlights, and then they did a little bit of outline out here, but this has an interesting read to it. I'm not quite sold on having that break it up, but it's a valid thing to do. It makes it look darker, and probably on a CRT, this would look great because of the smearing that goes on, because of the phosphorus lights. Pixel art isn't actually chunky. Pixel art is kind of weird and messy, but I don't have a CRT filter for this. This one is sort of whimsical. I would actually see this as like an RPG sprite. You know, the princess does something, or casts magic. There's that. This is probably more in line with what they might have had, but definitely a more of an anime style, which is kind of hard to pull off in the sprite sizes you have. So, kudos to that. That's actually probably more in line. Isn't that just a repeat of you? Yeah, it's a repeat of you. Did they just... No, they didn't. Okay, strange. This might be a little hell to do a running animation for, but I'd love to see it. And anyways, but yeah, so these are mostly possible. Maybe some of them are slightly bigger. I can't tell because I'm not going to count the pixels. But I would believe most of these fit into the 30 or the 16 by 32 square that they're trying to use. You just have to be really inventive. This one gets a little hard to read, but it probably looks amazing and does look like armor on a CRT, which, as I said, blends the sides because phosphorus stuff. Now, the actual stuff I generally look into is the monsters. Whoops. Because for some reason I end up drawing a lot of monsters and I never use them. Where are you? Nope, I'll get to you later. Where is my Zelda monsters? It's going to... So as I said before, they were using very much two-step animation. But this worked, like, it's a slime. It doesn't need much. It just does this every once in a while when it jumps or something. Same for over here. These just have the standard walking animation. And, once again, just flip these. Now, where are some bosses? I don't think I have the bosses on here. Nope. Okay, 1 second, uno momento. I did not. Return to sheet. Can I go in through this? I can go in through this. There we go, bosses. So I always find it interesting how, because bosses have to be big, but as I just said, you have a really limited color palette, and you have some limitations in how many sprites you can put on the screen before you start doing weird flickering stuff. And so it gets very interesting very quickly on how you square that circle. So this, they didn't do much. They... 1 second. There we go. And if we put the grid on there, we can see they're actually using 2/16ths, and they cut off a little over here. They could have made it longer, but maybe for gameplay purposes, maybe because it's the first boss, it shouldn't be that intimidating. But this is how it's diced up, and it's using the same color palette. Now, some other tricks that have been used in games is a background boss, which has come up. Contra used a lot of those, where the background and the foreground, you have like 2 sprites maybe on the foreground, but the background is this unique tile set that is used for the boss, and they actually put animations into it by just refreshing the background tiles. Some games go even further and just write literally the color data to background tiles in order to add animation, and that's a hardware sprite, I think it's called, where it's actually in the code to push those bits to the memory location for the texture. So anyways, the Dodongo, which has, you know, everybody's favorite, inflating and exploding. Because I think he just literally walked around and the only animation he had was exploding. I think they don't have a secondary sprite, So I think this is literally a horizontal flip where they just go back and forth in order to make that. And they only have the animation when going left and right. And this one they've properly diced the sucker apart because he loses his heads as he goes along. And the old orb neck parts. If you remember in games, they like to have orb for necks because this is the reason. It's just a sprite that floats around and you just put it between that and the head. And if you overlap them right, maybe you never notice, but it's obvious. Yes. So many games use that. And this weird thing, which I have no idea what it is. This is just a good old-fashioned palette swap. But it's built together of 3 pieces. I don't know if they swapped, had anything for leg animation, but I do remember this sucker. They probably just literally flipped these legs back and forth in order to show walk animation. You know, horizontally flip, put it on this side. Horizontally flip, put it on this side. Ganon actually doesn't have a bunch of frames. But didn't he have like a staff that floated around? I don't quite see it on here. Strange. And yeah, the example down here for showing hurt animations is that they just cycle through some colors. Where's your stick? I know you had like a weird like 2-end stick. Strange. Okay, anyways. Yeah, there's a trip down memory lane. Most of the time when they build like sprites, it's they pick one to be the master and then just offset everything to it. That's a modern day thing too, is that you have a parent object and then every child object has its X, Y, Z and facing built off that in relative positions. So this can be wherever, and this is -16 off the main one. This is -0, -16. Actually, I don't know if the nest at the top right is 0 or the bottom left is 0. Or the top left or the bottom left. But yeah. Could they have done more? I'm sure you could find somebody who went completely wild and redrew this in proper palette and hardware limitations. But as I said, early days. They were still figuring stuff out, and they just needed to get a product out. Okay, let me close you down. Close you more down. We'll keep link up. If I feel like it, I have a silly thing to do later. But for now, let's move on to more. Zelda. Okay, here we go. So I was hinting at it earlier. Mega Man cheats. Here you go. Mega Man cheats, and they aren't showing the cheating here. But you shouldn't be able to have white here. Heck. It looks like you're maxing out on even having skin here. So what goes on is that Mega Man is actually a lot of sprites. And if you played Mega Man, you probably noticed a more flicker than usual because of this. You're using an interesting sprite size, but same rules apply. This is a sprite, this is a sprite, this is a sprite, this is a sprite, and this all here is a sprite. It has the 3 colors, and then it has a transparency. It's a sprite. And this was probably, I don't know how they masked it. Maybe this was all blue. Maybe they had transparency through there. I don't know. Actually, this gets more confusing. 1, 2, 3. No, it works. Okay, okay. I'm thinking too hard. And another interesting fact about Mega Man is that he's blue because NES had the most blue colors. And that's literally it. They looked at the NES palette and went, well, we're not doing green. Let's do blue. And that's how you got the blue bomber. And then they cheated and had an extra sprite for the face. So that they could have, like, all the expressive little things, blinks. I think he has a hurt face animation. But yes. Sorry. Oh, here it is. So I guess it is transparent. Excuse me one second. So I guess it is a little transparent, but wouldn't have mattered. It could have been blue or whatever. They lit right on top of it this. Everything's good. And now just for more Mega Man, because it's actually a kind of complex one. It's slightly bigger than everything else, as I said. It's using more sprites on the screen, which is dangerous, but they used a good amount of background bosses and background objects. Like, I think everybody remembers disappearing blocks. Those were background objects. They just, you know, very smartly used a palette for them. It probably had black background, so you wouldn't know it. So they could have cycle through them appearing, disappearing, whatever. But 3 cycle running, which is your standard running cycle. You have left leg forward, right leg forward, and then something that you could go either direction and you wouldn't even tell that there's a problem. It's very, you know, heroic running style because he like leans forward and goes. But hey, you want to be as visually appealing as possible when you don't have much to work with. And I just want to bring up the bosses because bosses are always good to look at. Everybody loves Cutman's attack. And very blatantly, they're using the same sort of design for the basic sprites on most of these. Which is good. I mean, you get to reuse resources. I'm going to actually copy... Well, you're good enough. Get over here. Pretty much a palette swap, but you just go with that, and everything fits together. But back in this day, they didn't have a tablet. They might not even have had a mouse. So, if I remember correctly, some of the early NES games, they literally had a sheet for the sprites, like a grid, and the artist would put like the number or maybe a symbol for the palette in there, and then pass that off to a programmer to have them enter it in row by row because they had to put it in memory somehow for the for it to be used later. Cutman is obviously has this being a different one so that they can, you know, make it open and close. Maybe he shows it down here because it also has to, you know, disappear and fling around. Yeah, there it is. There you go. Mr. Mike, you have been shouted out. And for a bigger one, here we go. This one's going to be it. So, this may or may not be a background sprite. Given that it's got that... I would have to see the stage itself and how he moves and how he throws it around. Because if that moves in like 16 increments instead of smoothly, that's definitely a background sprite. But it's a lot to be used for that. And he actually uses I think, less sprites than the other, than Cutman. I'll have to check 1 second. Yeah, he's a 32 by 32. So, oops, I closed it. This right here is less intensive on the machine being used than Cutman, because Cutman has this little sucker above him. Oh no, actually, I may be mistaken. So 16, 16, 16. Each one of these is its own sprite. Over here, 16, 16, 16, 16. Each of these is its own sprite. However, I think this is its own sprite up here. So that's 5 sprites on this. But Mega Man wasn't exactly about being cheap on sprites, which give it a better look. It wasn't until Mega Man 2 that anybody cared, but hey, got to start somewhere. Anyways, now where was I? Here we go. This is my bread and butter. This is where I cut my teeth on a lot of spriting. Dragon Quest ideas. Oh, this is the JP one, so I'm going to bring up the English one after this, because it's real interesting. Dragon Warrior. The original Dragon Warrior didn't have any directions on it. Since it was a very early NES game, they hadn't quite figured out the best way to do this stuff. So literally, everybody's facing one direction, and you just kind of move around as this, and they have a little animation going on. They had some interesting things, like, you put on a shield, you put on a sword, they add that to the sprite. Because they had the room for it. Because they only had facing down. But the game was based off Ultima, in some respects, I believe it was. And Wizardry, too. I don't want to get too deep into it, but Final Fantasy was very much influenced by Dungeons and Dragons. Dragon Quest was influenced by Ultima and Wizardry. And the very old PC Ultima games didn't have directional facing. Most of the PC RPG sort of things didn't have directional facing. You had your sprite go around and then, like you say, talk left. And Dragon Quest implemented that. And it would have been horrible. So, when it released in the US, shout out to you. Hey. Okay. And shout out to you. When it did they have it in there? I didn't know they actually kept that over. I always remember it being sword and shield. I don't remember any sort of upgrade. But when they brought it over to the West, they added the directional stuff. And this was well after Final Fantasy came out, which is why Dragon Quest really failed in the West. Because, hey, Dragon Quest is just one guy. Final Fantasy, I have a party. In Final Fantasy, I talk to a lot of people and I do a lot of things. Where Dragon Quest was a weird, primitive game at the time. But everything in here is following the same 16 by 16 sprite. And only 3 real colors going on. So you have to get quite choosy. And this one is a horrifying thing to try to figure out. But because they kind of shared a palette in there, like 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. What I think they did for this one, unironically, what I think they did for this one, that's its own sprite in a 16 by 16. And they just put that down after, before or after they put down the princess, so that you could have two at once. So this is two sprites going on at the same time in order to cheese in an extra color. And they still didn't do anything too advanced with that. Here you cheat. You cheat so much because they made her hair disappear. Oh wait, no. Sorry. Yeah, here they go. They lined it up in here. But you could probably get away with not having the princess's hair if you like put it all as like his arm or something. But no, they did side by side. So that's two sprites. Here, once again, also these are two sprites. This is one, this is the other, because it has another color on it. They could have been even more fancy, but I don't think they want to cheat too much, though they probably could. It probably should have. I mean, like putting a little, one second. Like putting a little of that on there wouldn't have hurt. But very simple sprites, and it probably wouldn't get style, or else you would start having to do weird stuff in here. And because these were placed on actual dungeon tiles, town tiles, and all that, they couldn't cheat and assume they have black anywhere to use. So unlike with like the Princess Peach example, they didn't have black. Black was in a palette. They had three colors, and they had to use those three colors. They had no choice about it. Like him right here. What more could you do with it? Maybe with a better palette selection, you might be able to use two blues or something instead of like a blue and a white, and get some, be able to like have some like gradients in there with dithering, like yeah, you're not actually on here. Like you'd have that be a color, or what? Let me get something darker. If this was a lighter blue, you could get a mid-tone like that, and then you could just have it be dark like that. You might be able to get something with it, but you know, I'm actually going to play with that. So I'm going to eat my words, or I'm going to show what I mean. Okay, let's get rid of you, background. Like, they did exactly what they set out to do with it. And, as I said before, very old style. Very, we just need to get this done. Oh god, we don't have tools for this. Oh god, we're having somebody draw this out, and then somebody else input this into the program so that it can be put into the sprite texture RAM, and yada yada. So anyways, let me go back down to SNES. Let us make this be this blue. Now, then we can use that blue and a darker blue, which we already have, to do some things. Oops, get you too. No, I'm not the best, but you can texture this up. They probably weren't even thinking about texturing back then, but you could do more to make it pop out. Don't know, actually. That gets a little weird over there. It's probably mostly the fault of this staff being the same color as that, but it fits. And also, as said, because CRT does things to it, it would look better under CRT. And we lack a color to do anything with that, and I don't have the chops because this isn't like a... This isn't within the ramp we can use. Like Princess Peach had something of a warm color ramp. And I will just bring this back over. Because you have gold, or you have this brownish gold, you have this red, then you have the white and black. So that creates something like a... Let me bring this up. Load. So that creates a gradient of this. That, a reddish gold. An actual red. Nope, that's a little too pink. And then white. You can abuse the fact that they fit the same thing. Like, this is a warm one because, you know, red or yellow. You could probably do similar with, like, blue. Where you have a black. You have your dark blue. Maybe even you have, like, that's a little too much. Like, yeah, we want to keep right there. Then you have your white. And these don't clash together. Like, you saw me, I just went, okay, let's put this green in. Actually, that might work, but if, like, I use that green, it gets a little iffy. If I use that green, it's, kind of. If I throw that in there, it starts, like, not working out. So when you have a color ramp, you can cheat by having, like, so I have this. Therefore, I could say that this is the shade of this, because this is the tone deeper, or the value deeper. And then this is the outline down here, or like... like that. You can also, like, then just go like, oh, hey, we have this, and then we have this. Then we have this. But when you have the color outside the ramp, you really can't do that. Like, I can't go, hey, I have this. I'm going to shade it with this. No, that just looks like the color changes. So, Mr. Dragonlord here has an issue where he has no real color ramp because... Let me just make... yeah, we'll do it right here. Because his color ramp is pretty much this. So everything's always distinct on it. Any part, the most you get is like, white can be a highlight of black. So you could like highlight his face. Which doesn't quite work out. I mean, like, you could do it over here, but you're using the stuff from the staff. Which is why I kind of like said, if we made this a blue, maybe we could do something with it. And we kind of can. Honestly, I kind of do like that, but that's my own feeling on that. Honestly, would probably put something like that to say like, oh, that's raised up. Oh, that's raised up. Then, you know, you could flip that all over. Anyways. It gets a little weird for up here. I kind of ended up making it more like horns, which is a problem. Could light it up asymmetrically. It's my general choice. They don't, because if they make big sprites, they just flip the two things across and, you know, you're good. But it would require a different structure to work off of that. And I'm not going to sit here for the next 20 minutes. I would have other ideas on what I want to do. So anyways. The Japanese one, which have some interesting... The U.S. Department did pretty good on Making the Dragon Lord intimidating. Because, yeah, that's an update. But they had more experience. And this is very Dragon Quest was very primitive at the time. And you see they put more work into the hero. You're kind of right there. I mean, they also did sell. I don't think Toriyama was he as big back then, but they had more. This was the age of actually having books, so they probably had drawings of the Dragon Lord looking like evil and all that, and you read the story on it before you went into the game. But yes. So now on to where I spend a lot of time. Monsters. Because you have a lot of monsters. My god, you have a lot of monsters. So let's dive into Dragon Warrior monsters. Not that Dragon Warrior monsters. The sprite sheet for Dragon Warrior. The monsters on that sprite sheet. Whoops, that's not it. Hello? Copy image. Same guy. So this one's a little weird, because Dragon Quest had a... They didn't like, they were showing it before in The Legend of Zelda. Usually when things are hurt, they cycle through a color palette and just like move it. But they didn't do that in Dragon Quest. Instead, they had a single color palette that they put over it. And I don't know if that's a sprite or... Well, no, it has to be a sprite. Because unless they were able to update these to be... Yeah, effectively in the background. So these are different... These are the same... No, actually, I'm thinking on that. These are all the same. But when they reinterpret it, they load in so that this becomes red, this becomes red, this becomes red, this becomes red. Okay. Basically, on the scene, they have effectively two sprites in RAM. One for the actual character and one for the hurt. Because the hurt has to be a single color. They can't do like a weird like ramp through this or update it and then they can reset it because they lose all the data. Anyways, your classic updated ones. They must have had a heck of a time porting Toriyama stuff into this, but they did a good job. They did better and later. And look, they even have fingers. They have 5 fingers. They're not the best looking. Probably in CRT they look better. But this is something I would hesitate to do, and they had the balls to do it. You've seen me sit here and go, oh god, the hand is awful. They just sent it. They went, this is the best we're getting. We're going with it. Now, I don't think, I might be mistaken on this, but I don't think these were actually background sprites. Because in the original Dragon Quest, not sure about the US version, but I know the Japanese version loved to have backgrounds for your fight. So you would have to have your own sprite for that. And then this is just a flip and recolor. Looking a little awkward there, Scorpion. He doesn't look like he wants to be here. He looks like he's a slime trapped inside of a scorpion shell. I've never noticed that. Anyways, this one they actually put a lot of stuff in. The Drowl. And I love me the Dragon Quest skeletons. They inspire me. Just going through here. And this is actually based off wrestler stuff. Because the old, leotard they used to have. I don't remember what their names are, but I think they're. These are actually these. I think it might be the Drawl, which is ye olden drow stuff. But the old Drawl were like trolls and all that. But that's neither here nor there. But as you like, it's kind of funny because this shares the same space with the JP sprites that I showed before. So like, you could tell all the work went into making the enemy sprites, which is mostly what you're interacting with the game, because it's an old JRPG. You're fighting a lot of these. You're grinding against these, but these are the overworld sprites. Then you get into a fight, and it's this. And also, they had the sprite resources to have all these on screen because there's only one enemy at a time. It was the later games that they had a party. And the Axe Knight, the Mad Knight, whatever. This is probably an additional sprite they added to this. I wonder if One Piece stole this from. Oh yeah. There's a lot of Ouroboros of eating previous games and other games into here. Yeah. Look at this. So I was talking about ramps. This is a distinct avoidance of it, but they get away with it because they can put a black in. And they're able to say, this is the highlight, and go with that. Now, they can't put any detail whatsoever, but because they're able to put black lines here, they're able to make everything distinctive. And like, they could have did some dithering. And then over on this side, this is its own sprite. Oh yeah. Over here, this is its own different sprite, because it has its own different color palette. And I'd have to look to figure out where exactly you are. And I think it's around here because they have the green thing down here. Yep. And they also have the mouth color, which isn't red, which is interesting. They make it red for this one, but it isn't red over here. It isn't red over here because... Don't know. I think they wanted to stick with cooler colors because of the green and brown. So red would be jarring, but they need to have something for, tongue. This is Phase 1 Dragon Lord, and they put 5 fingers on it. I know it's Japan, so they really try to put the 5 fingers on because, Yakuza, you lose your pinky. Way too early. But then he turns into this. And the funny thing about Dragon Lord's second form is he steps on the text box. Because he's so big that he can't actually... Whoops. He can't actually, fit on everything. So you have your text box down here. And to me, this is the most hilarious thing. Is that, the top of your text box is there. But his feet go over the edge of it. Or, maybe it's, down here or something. But if I remember correctly, he's too big on how he's placed on the screen. So he steps on the text box. And either through fluke or design, that's kind of amazing to me. But yeah. It must have been something back in the day. It kind of is. But just the way everything's put out, because this is, as I said before, this is an actual sprite, and then you have your background sprites, and the background sprites were the text box. Now, the text itself, I'm not sure how that worked. It gets really weird because you have to put it, but it had to probably be background ones. So they probably were doing what I said before of making text sprites and then blitting it to the screen. Or to the memory, then putting down the tile, then updating it, and then re-blitting it to memory. But yeah. Can I actually find it? Dragon Quest 1 Dragon Lord Phase 2 fight. Can I just get a screenshot? Duh. Okay, I'm going to copy this over. This isn't it yet. I'm going to try and do a little bit more looking. But it shows what I mean. Maybe it was 2 that they did the actual background things, but as you can see, Dragon Lord... Okay, so the Japanese didn't add in the color till later, the background stuff. I think it was 2 then, but yeah, he doesn't quite fit on there. And I just want to find Dragon Quest SNES. Dragon Lord. And I think there might have been a few other... Oh, it was the US that added the color background. Okay, then. Because I'm seeing it. Yeah, okay, here we go. It's hilarious. And I love it. Here's a bad screenshot. But there you can see it. It's amazing. He just puts his foot down on your text box. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're fighting something that's so big it has to step on your text box. There we go. That's about the right size. But you kind of have to go all out for bosses. And it's also the end of the game, so you need to have something very memorable. Like, it's been said, your boring can be passable and mediocre, but your start and end have to be great. Which is why I think, when games tend to open up towards the middle, I think it loses people, because all they'll remember is, like, I just went down this hallway forever. So you could have, like, the start of the game be that, and then you have the most open world, go whatever, do a million side quests, do whatever the heck you want. And it'll get lost on people because all they'll remember is the start. And if they played through the game and then had a good ending, they'll say, like, yeah, but the ending was good. And it kind of opened up in the middle, and it could be, like, completely open in the middle, but they won't know. But anyways, you got to start strong and you got to end strong. So, there wasn't actually that many enemies in Dragon Quest. And most of them are just recolors. It's Dragon Quest 2 where they went a little off the rails. And I'm going to look for that. Dragon Quest 2 Sprite Resourcer. So this is much later when they, you know, you figured out things. This is for the NES, right? I think this might be the SNES version. Let me look in closer. No. Actually, no. This is... Okay, this is the SNES version. Okay. I want NES. Dragon Quest 2. If the site doesn't have it, I will be sad. No, this is the MSX. Okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go in through NES. Hit the magic D on there. And go to Dragon. Sprite Resourcer is a great place to go to just look at sprites and try to figure it out. Or if you really just need to get something done and learn from it, recolor, work within the lines. Oh yeah, they had Mega 10 on the NES. I forget this. Dragon Quest. That's Donkey Kong. Let me actually just Dragon. Dragon Ball Z. I think those are not official things. Dragon Warrior. Oh, yeah, because the Dragon Quest Dragon Warrior divide. Because Dragon Quest couldn't be used in the West. So, okay. Copy image. This is where they started to go kind of all out once they figured out things. Because look at these suckers. They started to realize, oh, we could use black to do this. We could do some intricate detail. But then we have this. We have two sprites. So we have the white here and the red for the eyes to come in. But they have the color ramp. This is exactly what I was talking about before. You have this color. Then you have this color. And then you have this color. And then they cheat to get white and red in. But that's the main thing. So you can actually have red on top. But you can use this and say that this is the shading of this. Or, well, the greens kind of doesn't work too much. The white is, or this blue is the shading of the white. You have some options in there. And they use it to full effect right here. Because you could just say like this is the same color. This is like kind of coming backwards, hidden by shadow. But oh, these are out, so it's more lit up. And then you transition to that. The green more or less fits in because it's the same sort of thing. Like if you made this, let me actually go to the proper sort of thing. Load you up. Like if you made this like pink or something, this looks weird. But it's green, so it fits in. You can't use it for the ramp, but you can use it for fitting in and not clashing. Same thing over here. The blue isn't part of the ramp, but they have a ramp between those two colors. And with the black to separate, it doesn't cause any of issues. Like if you didn't have this black here, this becomes a lot less readable or interesting. Like, it kind of works, but it doesn't work as much as when you have that outline there. Because you need to have to say that, like, this is further up from the rest of the body. And then here you go with, oh, how many sprites are you, my boy? Because that's definitely a sprite over there. So that's an extra sprite. So you have 1, 2, 3 colors there. You get up to here. What are you doing? So these... yeah, and this is the game where you could have multiple enemies on screen. So this might have had black background to cheat in an extra color, and also to avoid sprite flicker. Or they could have just like put everything to background layer. Who knows? But yeah, you win for putting a lot of things on. You probably aren't a big party, but yes. I would have trouble trying to dissect the best way to figure out what's what. I would assume it's basically like this. Because the only thing that's off right here is like your arm. So you just sneak that in here. So what? You blit him down under this palette. Or at least the bottom half under this palette. Then you blit down the top half under the other palette so you get white in there. No, actually, you have white in over here. And then you also have silver. They did some layering on this guy. Your classic things. These guys, you have the sprites over here, and then you're blitting something on top of something else because you're not getting that many colors. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that face's teeth are probably its own sprite that they drop right on top here. Same with the ears. But yeah, then you get down to stuff like this. The Berserker or Wildling. I don't remember. Maybe some other name, because I forget sometimes. But it's just, they pack so much in on the hardware. Because that's more than it is. I could go on all day. Then you have your classic dragon. Not much has changed. I think it is literally a port of the dragon, just with a different color palette. Don't see any touch-ups. Your classic dragon. Drakeys. Have this. Here we go. Once again. This like these are pretty big sprites. Like let me grab this guy just to get a size. Let me size you up. That's fine. Have a good rest. Okay. So we have him. We bring him over. Fair enough. It's going to be here afterwards. I'm going to rant still. So, as I said, color ramp, they're using the blues to like show a different side of this so they can actually give it some form. Like they do it right here. They do it right here. It's great. They do it here on the fingers, which you could argue on. Maybe it should be half moons, but it does what it needs to do. And this sucker is a massive... I mean, it's the Gigas. It kind of has to be massive. Yeah. So, this... I'm a little off. There's an extra pixel or two up here. So, these do fit on it. It is 1, 2, 3, 4. It is 4 sprites tall by 4 sprites wide. And then, they add a club, which is its own... Which, yeah, it looks like they might be able to do all this within that square, but that is a massive 4 sprites by 4 sprites. And one thing they do to get the fur texture on here is that they make the lines longer the more it like goes towards the edges or tilts. And then like it's more, it has a few dots in here when it's like directly facing you. But that's how generally you do fur. Here it's just trying to show some of the curve going on, but I'll bring up something quickly. The general technique is when it's facing directly on you, like the actual individual things of fur are facing you, so they're more dot-like and maybe have a little bit of this. But as you get away, they like start tilting, so instead of facing you, like this one, once tilted, is more like that. And then like as it further goes away, then you get like a lot more gaps and overlap, so you can get a lot more of black on it. And that's just kind of the too long didn't read, I need something in 5 seconds fur technique. But either way. Okay. Yeah, lots of work on him. Get as much out of this face as possible, but they have a lot of real estate to work with since it's such a big sprite. But they use everything just great. Boop. Getting down here. Yeah, once again, color ramp. They have 2 colors. They have the darker color, the lighter color. They could have fit a third one in there, but they don't have the room. So you have this entire section that you know is under, like this is like a droopy sleeve. So you have it in there. You have this. You can get all the folds. Good stuff. And then for sprite cheating, they can add in the sickle or scythe. Casters. Now, this is a step back. And I'll say it out loud. You gave everyone else 5 fingers. You went out of your way to give everybody 5 fingers. Except for like the wolf thing. And now you come back with 4 fingers. What went on? I mean, you're so... You'd probably even just, like, send it like this. Before. And, like, that works, my dude. That works, guy. Brother, you could have had 5 fingers. What happened? Did he fail the Dragon Lord? Once again, you could have had 5 fingers, or at least insinuated there's extra one. This is just coming out as 3. You are so good about it. I mean, I guess maybe it became accepted. You could get away with that because of The Simpsons and such, but... yeah. Otherwise, the grain work on this is good. I always find it trouble to make, like, grain-looking sort of things in tables. Like, as you can see my background, I was going to make it a table grain, but I couldn't do it. So it's just, you know, brown. But, anyways, this they do it. It's mostly striped, but they curve it around the bodies, and it doesn't curve up this way, so it doesn't look like contour lines. So it kind of reads as wood. Looking over here, yeah, I just love when they add that extra thing in there. Like, it's cheap, but it feels so much better than a palette swap when they literally just add in like a new weapon to it, and like it makes sense. And like once you look at them next to each other, like, oh, they just copy pasted that and added a sword. But still, when you're playing the game, you don't think about these things, because this guy was 7 zones ago. You aren't going to see him next to this guy unless there's like some weird battle formation. And then it's on them that they reveal the secret sauce. And once again, they have the black so that this pops out, and then they have the black so that this pops out to show some layers. These are on the same layer, so they can be up next to each other. I think they could have possibly put a little bit of black here on the boots, but then you kind of lose them a bit. Like, that works. So it's a little weird unless they're saying, like, these are wrestler pants. Or, like, a entire thing is, like, tights or something. But then again, they didn't do it up here. And if you did it up here, you would have to do it down here. Either way. Like, that's a nitpick. Like, that's something I'm a little confused why. On the wings, I can see it, because these are supposed to be the same thing. Though you could have done this. And make it look like the wings are definitely catching air on here. Yeah, this one feels like there's a little... They didn't want to push some things on her. Not sure why. Anyways. Good old hand. Man, I don't remember. There's so many... Like, as I said before, they could have, in the old ones, really gone into detail, but it was a terrible way to push in sprites. Then they started to get softer. So these were probably actually made with mice. With, well, using a mouse. Okay, let's look at you. So yeah, you're a 3x3. And I don't think... Look at... So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they definitely had to drop in some color on here. I'm guessing... Oh, well, how would you do that? I'm guessing literally the eye. Like, this is probably right in the background. And then they drop in just that single thing. And it adds a lot to it. It's cheaty as heck, and you don't have to care about it now. But if you're trying to go for an old 8-bit style, you need to understand this needs to be rare. Like, what could have they done instead if they want to keep it? I guess they could have used the blue. I mean, that does work, kind of. It's interesting. So, I kind of find it weird that they chose to use the eggshell. Well, actually, it's probably a skin tone, but yeah. I just love how they decided to go all out and give every single snake they could an eye and a face. Good stuff. Then you have your little devil. Your mummies. I think part of it is also is like it was Toriyama, so they had to stick with his style a bit, and that edges more towards a cartoony, even for anime, just because how he does his faces and everything is kind of simple. So it works very well with sprites. Like, you wouldn't tell these orcs are kind of his, but... Rats. Ah, Skellies. Dragon Quest Skellies, how I love thee. these are very detailed for what they are. I mean, you can tell that these are the pelvis and all that. And then they got it in here at, 45 degrees. Because it might look... It looks more actiony than like... Okay. I'm going to go into why this one's like this. And it's all due to size. And maybe it's how Toriyama drew it, but... This sucker's already pushing it. If he was standing straight up and had like a sword up, that'd be like a lot more. They probably couldn't put that on the screen. That's like giga size. So they compact them all into this, and it kind of works. Wisps. Pterodactyls. This isn't the Dragon Lord. I forgot who it is, but he has a second phase. Yeah, okay. Here's an example of color ramp being used. I was talking about. So, you can read this as background being brown. Like this is behind everything. Or it's shadow. And it's still put in here. It's coming from this. But it's... You could have did a different color, but it sort of works for this. It's a little odd. Over here, it makes more sense because you can ramp this like green. This you could read this as a dark brown, even though it's a green. Yeah. Man, just look at this. So this they kept. This can repeat, and then they start switching it to try and make us believe that it's actually rounding a corner. That's some stuff I sit there for hours going, oh, it's wrong, and they just went with it. Because this isn't quite matching up to the right size of this. I don't even think it's the same amount of pixels. But they don't care, because all that matters is that it reads like it's going around the corner. And then this guy is just a massive amount of sprites. His tail has a tongue. His tail has a face. Interesting. You massive boy. Let me just, let me extract you so I can marvel at what they did and how they did it. Look at this. This is probably ends up using some background stuff. Because as a background, yeah, look, what I talked about before with this guy up here, they did it with him. They added in the black line to separate the wing ribs, I guess you would call them, from the rest. They made sure to put a black line around everything so it all pops out from the back. So, if they use some background sprites, they don't get the black line for free, so that has to be part of the budget. But that is part of the budget right here. So I think actually to save on sprites, they probably did have this be a background. Because then you have these as a sprite, you have these as a sprite, and you just flip it horizontally. Because this guy does not flip horizontally because of the texturing they do. These parts maybe, but this face does not flip because these dots right here. Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you give him those ones right there too? For style points, that's why. This one you flip. The mouth is probably its own sprite because they flip it. And they can cheap on that. And then the arms and legs they can do on till this point. This they probably is its own sprite. These they flip. And they blit this first and then they put this on top of it. And it's like they had to make sure that. But yeah. A lot of work in this sucker. Anyways, that's it for like looking over Dragon Quest stuff. Okay. I think, who was next on this list? Ah, yes. So I've never looked over this sheet before. But this is the original mother. Which very much took inspiration from Dragon Quest, because it has the same sort of... I'm going to do a thing. I apologize in advance. So while there are many lines in, you know, RPGs and such, I kind of look at it like the hierarchy of the how roguelikes inherited things. And so you kind of have some things. Okay, you're going to be red because I'm going to do things. Oh, okay, let me just do this. On death, inventory, stat gain. So, Dragon Quest, on death, last in, you respawn and half gold. Final Fantasy, restart from save. Inventory, each character. And then you have shared. Now this one, I'm not so sure anymore. I'd have to look back at the old. I think they both had random stat gain. But then they diverged a bit, and it was more fixed stat gain. And then semi-random stat gain for Dragon Quest. What I mean by that is that the original Dragon Quest originally, its stat gain is kind of fixed, but it's randomized by your name because they didn't have it. I think later ones, they kind of had it you roll, but Final Fantasy I think also had it you roll when you level up to gain some stats. They slowly kind of edge towards like, oh no, this is your stat curve. I know by 6 they definitely had the stat curve in there, and that like it had weird things like some characters would gain and then start like losing stats because they were really old characters. But they were mostly fixed. But I think they both kind of converge. But I think Dragon Quest, I'd have to check on the really recent ones, would have... You plan out some stat things, because you know they had the grid, they had the trees and all that. But I don't know if they randomize the HP anymore on gain, on level up. But the main thing that I think of when I think of random gains is that Dragon Quest, they really started cribbing from something. And I'm not sure if it's D&D or if Ultima had this, but your spell skills, you would get into a range and then you would roll basically intelligence to modify it, and that's how you got your spells. I know this because speedrunners hate this. Because it is quite possible your character never learns a vital spell because there's like no maximum limit. Maybe the later ones they added it in. But like you hit level 5 as like say a wizard and you're wanting to learn fireball and you have like all this int. And it rolls like a dice and it goes, no, you don't learn it. But I think like where it mostly comes from is the cleric and like learning teleports and going home and all that. And you just don't learn it, and then the run's dead. But the main divide, I think, would actually go more into Dragon Quest on death. You just go to your last town you went to, and you get revived at the church. And then each character has their own inventory. They kind of did away with that a little bit, I think, but because they just have like a massive, endless sack you put everything into, and then you have what's equipped, and that only happens in battle. Final Fantasy, you have your equipment, and then everybody shares from the same bag for pulling out potions. Which, And then, when you die, you restart from your save. Newer ones, I think, allow you to do battles again, but I think that's just the current trend of everybody. If you die in a battle, you get to restart from the start, or you restart from your last save, or give up in Dragon Quest, and then you go like, oh, you are as cold as cod, you can't lose yet, and then they take away half your money. So the lineage of Dragon Quest is very much into Earthbound because of that, and because of the random stats in each character inventory, and also into Pokemon. That said, Pokemon is very much based on Dragon Quest 3 or 4 because you could recruit monsters. And Game Freak, or Ape at the time, really liked that. You could recruit monsters, and like if you look at old Pokemon sprites, like trainers used to have like whips. They were more like the monster tamers of old. I don't know how to go find those sprites. They're prototype ones. I'm not even sure they really made it into game except for a few, and I don't know which of them they were. But it was based off of that whole idea of it. They made an entire game based off of a mechanic that people really didn't like work with. I'm not even sure if speedrunners did use it because you'd get a bomb so that they could sacrifice themselves specifically in one fight because it does enough damage quickly, and you never need it in like other ones. But yes. Anyways. So prototype or Mother 1, as you can see, very minimalistic. This is like the early, like this. We looked at Dragon Quest, the Japanese one, and this has a feeling of it. It has like dot eyes and all that, but it definitely, and it's feeling more Western, which was Earthbound always was supposed to be more of like a Western middle America sort of thing. Midwest, I think is the word. Like, these all honestly feel like more like platformer sprites, to be honest. They have that feel. Oh yeah, these are some animation things of it. And I forgot if he was actually called Ness in the original one. But anyways, very simple 2-frame things. Like, very much the Earthbound walk cycle, which, you show the bottom of the foot, except for this guy, because he's kind of a greaser. Interesting stuff. Oh yeah, the dead sprites. In the US, for Dragon Quest games, they didn't want to make a coffin, so they had ghosts. And that's where they all come from. But I love all the jokes that came from a hero dragging his party of coffins behind him that pop up in other places. I find it hilarious, because that's exactly what it looks like. Okay. Anyways, I haven't seen most of these, so let's look into... Oh, non-playable characters. This is going to be interesting. Because there's a lot. There is a lot of NPCs for what is for a NES game. And they have basically the same style, which that's literally a witch. I'm not familiar with the original Mother so much. I know a few things about it, but this actually like feels more like Game Boy sprites than actual like Nintendo sprites. A random panda. It is a nice panda, though. This is like in water. Why is there... Is there a zoo in this game? There's a dragon. I feel like there's a zoo. Is this the game? Did they also have enemies that you had to avoid? Because if like a few of these are enemies, I could see it. I don't think all of them are. Yeah. Interesting. Well, like, if I had to sum up Earthbound style, that's a put. Nope, that's not the thing I want. If I had to sum up Earthbound style, 50% head. Well, most of the characters are children, so 50% head for them. Like that. Whoop, that. Now I don't need that. Foot up. Foot down. Let me use gray. Nope, let me use dark gray. Foot down. Make a new frame. And you wobble it. Unironically, when I think of Earthbound sprites, this is it. And like, looking at these, my mind is not being changed. Like, are these even 16? Like, they feel like they're 8 by 8. Yeah, they're barely 16. They feel a lot smaller. But they aren't. Once again, want to be earthbound. See bottom of feet when walk. Yeah, that's a lot of motion to it, but it's very weird. Dragon Quest. I've done it before. Dragon Quest is, you know, it's like half third is head. Then you have 1 foot down, and then 1 foot up, and then you have an arm doing something. New frame. Flip that. Move this up. I'm jumping into this because I wanted to do this like later, like say, yeah, this is what I think of when I do this. So yeah, this is Dragon Quest. You have the flip-flopping of the feet, and then you have the arm go up and down. I'm more into like trying to replicate RPGs than platformers. Programming platformers is hard. I've done some of it, but platformer hard. There's a lot of these guys. These are just recolors, but that's a guy with a sack on his head. And I'll say that's, yeah, when you get small enough, when you get really tiny, and you really want to cheat, you can use wrong colors everywhere. Because why would you have, like, I mean, you could technically, since this is like a sack, you could just, like, whoops, use black there. But they used red specifically to have it, like, stand out and not, like, fold in. Anyways, let's move on to the monsters, because I have not looked at the monster sheet for Mother. And it is a thing. This is more detailed than I would expect. This is from Smoking Crow. These are actually quite good. Like, once again, I'm getting Dragon Quest vibes of like, wow, these are really simple sprites for Overworld, and then you get into this detailed mess. Because a lot of detail, like, you didn't need to do that. You didn't need to stripe the tail to, like, give it the texture of the rat tail. And then you're doing the whole, like, we're going to pretend that this ramps into this, so that you can reuse the color over here. Like, Dragon Quest 2 was definitely abusing sprites. This is abusing palette and reusing colors everywhere. So, 1, 2, 3. So, these are definitely their own sprite at the bottom. And probably their own sprite at the top, or at least they give it a different sprite palette for this section. Crow is mostly staying the same. The hippie is, I'm guessing that's a zombie. And this is a lot of texture. This is more like what modern people do. They put a lot of texture on stuff. And generally, you should put a lot of texture when it's like away from the focal. You have two options. You really texture the focal point, or you don't texture the focal point, and you have to have some sort of like draw to it. Texture, or doing a lot of texture usually is the draw though. So use at your own risk for doing the opposite. Were you shot? I think you were shot. Some sort of ghost. Yeah, and the elephant is also for shading using ramp. They probably could have actually like made this go further. You could see a little bit that they're using on there, but they probably could have, like, you know, really pushed that overlapping. They do down here. They definitely do. Like, they could have pushed it a little more, but they made their choice on how far they're going to go with it. Same over here. Like, you could have said, like, given direction of light, you could have put like a little more on that. This probably reads better. CRT and all that. You're a monkey. You're a heck of a monkey. That's a choice. Is your neck down here, or is your neck here? The world may never know. This is literally just a Scribs look at sprite stream. It was kind of going to be. What the heck are you? I mean, it's Earthbound. I mean, I shouldn't be too confused that there's weird, wild stuff, but... Hey, look, a UFO. Choppers. And fighting cars because Earthbound. Fighting trucks. Truck-kun is going to have his day. Okay, this is a very good example of a ramp. So you have the black is probably background black. I don't know how Earthbound originally, not Earthbound, Mother has black backgrounds for fights or not, but I would assume so given the sprite. So then you have your darkest color, and then you ramp up into the mid-tone, and then the lightest tone is that. And then you kind of detail using those colors. Like over here, you can see it. These are not flipped. That's a lot of memory to use. And you have a half-destroyed one. That's interesting. That's a nuclear symbol. That's a recolor. I'm not even sure if this is transparent or if it's just actually the color used. Ape. Okay. And there's your Starman. There's a literal knight. More zombies. A pile of leaves or puke given it. I don't know if this is like the censored version and the uncensored version. The fact that they have dripping blood is kind of wild, given the era. A buffalo. I guess Earthbound has always had a thing with like, yeah, you're taming, the animal became tame. So weird and interesting to look at this. Shout out to Mike. And now we get into the fun stuff. The bosses. I assume that's a doll. That's a small Starman. That's a fish. Giant robot, okay. Giant dragon thing, okay. Some punks. Yeah, this is... Okay, these are definitely censorship. Because that guy has a knife. So I'm guessing when they made... when they made the Earthbound Zero, whatever they called it, they removed these, maybe? So, it looks like the shot-up gangster up here. This is what they did, and this is what the original was in Japan. Or maybe these were just still on the sheet. I don't know. But it really feels like a censorship thing. Robot Mark 2, 3. And there you have a very interesting thing of Gygax. Or of Gigas? Anyways, it's Mewtwo. Unironically, it pretty much looks like Mewtwo because Ape was part of whoever did Earthbound at the time. And the psionic thing that has like a weird tail and kind of cat ears. This is pretty much prototype Mewtwo. But man, just look at this. We got... in order to like give it some shading, they gave this and they reused that over here and over here. So this is the dark part, and they get darker until they don't actually use the midtones anymore, and then they have the reds. Just contrasts everything. Well, not exactly contrast. Red-blue is not red-orange, but it's close. It still keeps it cooler without going too hot. This is a very dark, cold orange, red. Though red should be warm, it's not light enough to count as it, because of all the stuff going on. Then you have the shine on here, and then you have the other reflection that sometimes happens that you could either say it's like it's the back of it, or it's like, yeah. Good stuff. So what, did you not fight a pillow? Did you not fight a dolly? Or a little girl? I can see you fighting a little girl and mother. Okay. Now, it's almost 2 hours. Maybe I'll go a bit longer. Maybe I won't. But I want to bring up the Final Fantasy sprites, which I have worked with a bit. Actually, do I have them? No, I don't. 1 second. Now, these are interesting in a lot of ways. There we go. Okay, got those. Because this is something they kind of always did, but it gets forgotten. Everybody knows these sprites. But these are what the characters become. And nobody remembers these sprites. And it's kind of hilarious. Because it's like literally kids just becoming ultra buff from like the proportions that go on. Like these are the same size, but the proportions completely change. Because this is kind of like head size 2, head size 4. And it's just funny, and like everybody remembers these. Nobody thinks of these characters. Everybody thinks of these. And it's kind of an early game, late game sort of thing. Because everybody remembers the middle, and then they remember the end. They don't remember their characters growing up. It's not a thing. And then they have literally a sprite for every single weapon that you use. Like most of them are recolor, but then you have kind of like a few in here that aren't. And because they show up for like 2 seconds and they go away and they show up again when the character attacks. And then also, like, on the thing, your character grows up on the world map, too. And also, the thief completely changes colors. He doesn't have that hair anymore. Because I'm pretty sure, like, maybe there's a few, like, sea tiles or something that might get lost on. I'm not sure. It's just funny. And then, like, the mage takes off their hood and, like, all the red hair. And the black mage becomes black mage who takes off hood. And he kind of starts having villain vibes. Let's be honest. You're hitting that purple color. That's villain. And everybody remembers the like black void. Like even in Final Fantasy 9, they don't recognize this guy. They recognize the black void. And it's hilarious. And there's literally, they have a fist for when you punch. So like this guy, he walks up. He does this as you see, the arm disappears, and this is like the attack animation. But since like the monk only like use fist weapons, they don't bother that. And then you have like a fist over there, like moves around a little bit. It's janky, but compared to Dragon Quest, because as I said before, Final Fantasy came out in the States before Dragon Quest, and even though Dragon Quest got an update, Final Fantasy was seen as like so much better. And as you can see, like they put a lot more animations in it. Like Dragon Quest didn't have your characters do attacks or whatever. Final Fantasy started that up, and that's also kind of do I have the divide between them? That's another thing is Dragon Quest didn't typically in the start have characters do attacks or anything like that. Final Fantasy was the one that did that. They had like the whole left-right dichotomy that went into everything from then on. Dragon Quest games kind of like you were facing your enemy, and even like Earthbound and Mother did that to a degree, where like they had your characters in the bottom, and like they like pop up and on your turn when you had them select or when they were doing an action, and they just had like special effects happen on the screen. Final Fantasy was like always had your characters in the action, like lined up like minis fighting in D&D. I don't know if that came from any of the games at the time. I think the games at the time were very much Ultima related, Ultima Wizardry, which is like here's your enemies, here's your enemies, here's your enemies. Here's like maybe you have portraits and HP in these sections, and then you do your menus and whatnot. So Final Fantasy was very different in that like here's your all your stat information, or here's all your like menu information. Here's a tiny sliver for some HP stuff, and then here's your guys doing it, and then here's all your enemies. And they kind of have to live in the same space. Where you can get kind of weird with Earthbound, SMT. The original SMTs before like Persona started putting like your playing characters on the map. And like kind of to the degree modern ones for SMT cheat a little bit because you know you face your enemies, but now they have you zoom up to your characters and all that. But like you could have like real size discrepancies and you don't have to like figure it out. Like Yahweh is like the prototypical, we have giant enemy head here. And how big is he supposed to be? You're supposed to assume he's massive. But he's just as big as, you know, like humanish demon with sword. But because like it's removed from any sort of scale, you could cheat like you wouldn't believe. Also, excuse me 1 second. Okay, I'm not muted. So anyways, like, as I said, Final Fantasy had to keep the enemies kind of in scale with you, while they did have, like, massive all... these things, they had to give up more resources for it. Where like the Dragon Quest Ultima line, you just put an enemy on screen, and you can kind of assume how big it is by like how detailed or like other elements of it, because most enemies are kind of like fitting the same size. Anyways, that rant aside, I just find it hilarious. Takes off hood, becomes buff. Both of them take off hood, become buff. And then one kind of... Like, it is literally, they grow up. And I think that was supposed to be part of it, but it's never commented on. You just do your class change at any time, and like, all of a sudden your character's bigger. Silly. Anyways, let's pull up the other thing. So the enemy sprite sheet, which is really kind of interesting. Because, as I said, this came out after Dragon Quest. I will keep saying this, but in the States it didn't. But they had really detailed... Like, they had to keep in size with these guys. I will keep saying this. I will even keep a fighter on screen to say they had to keep a scale with this. So they couldn't do... Oh, I closed it down. Like... make them too much bigger. So you have to swallow that. Like, this is as big as this. And they detailed these a lot more because they didn't need to do animation. These guys, they had to, like, move a little bit. But they very much went into, hey, we have to show some shading on these so they all have a ramp. Like, this face can go into this blue, which... This blue, because we see it going into like the purple here, can also then go into this. So this is even a deeper shade of the skin color. This is an obvious ramp right here, but they use white for eyes and all that. And this skeleton. Very good use of it. Because none of this is... Because only one thing on here is white. Yet you're making the bones... not white in order to do this. So they're using this as their darkest color. Or as their mid-tone, actually. And that is their darkest color. And this off-white as their highlight. And they make it work. It's like the foot's raised. Like it's supposed to be a skeletal foot or, you know, like a shoe or whatever. Have that. But clearly this is the bottom half of the bone. So the problem with always having to shade something means that everything has to be too wide. At the very least, everything has to be too wide or too high in order to always shade something. Like over here, you'll see like they don't shade this arm, but once they get into here, they have to shade this. The knife, they kind of do a little weirdness with, but the bones on this, if they're shading it, has to be 2. This they can't do anything about. They just put black around it. This has to be 2, so they shade it. This is 2, so they shade it, so on and so forth. This is a massive, I don't know what's going on. This goes into texture, and once again, has a ramp. This is your darkest color. This is your mid-tone that you're using. And this is your lightest. And because everything's so small, you just have to make it kind of look like it. This one's more interesting. This is definitely shifting from one sprite to another midway. But anyways, so yeah, your darkest stuff going on is that. And then you also cheat. Because like, this is a leg. This is clothing. And this is like a shoe or something. This is also hands. They're the same color, but because you separate them with black, you could say there's something different. And this is one you can't shade, but they use the same sort of colors to stripe it. And then they use it like, this is the darker, so like, yeah, this is all dark down here, and like the tips are dark because, you know, they're at the bottom. And they cut out some parts. I think that's more possibly a mistake, but who knows. And you're definitely cheating. So that's 1, 2, maybe not. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, they're not cheating. Okay, I am wrong. But the ramp here is... This is an interesting ramp. This is one you find in times of necessity, not want. Though you could probably make a style around it. Like, those make sense. Then you jump into this. Like, maybe. It's definitely a lot lighter. And then you have your dog here. Then you got your big old boys. I forget some things, but I think the setup of... Like, this is a huge... This is like a ghost. It's kind of big. This is definitely bigger than you. These are about the same size. There could be 9 enemies, but I think if you had a large enemy, they tended to take up 4 slots, maybe? So you can only, like, fight 2 or 1 at once. Not sure on that, but, would have to look into it. It's been a while. But once again, they make heavy use of shading on this. And this one has a very much... This is the knee going forward, and then everything is going back and then coming back forward. So they push the whole... Like, it disappears in the darkness. They kind of had to do that, but... And also, this is definitely using well... Nope, this is 4-color. No. They had to use some different sprites on here, or else they're using some background trickery, but they made a color ramp of... No, these suckers are making me second guess myself. That is 3 colors. Is there anything else on here? No, this is 3 colors. And they use it very well. Because I thought this was a different color than that for a second. But because it's sitting next to a purple, it's, I think it desaturates it a bit, so you see it as something else. Like, you shouldn't be, like, the purple is more being, like, lightened up because of this. Because when it's right next to this, you see this as a dark color. But when it's right next to a light color, you see it light. It's more of an actually mid color, but yeah. Anyways. Not much to say. It's just like they're really detailed. They make use of 3 colors very exclusively. Where instead, like, Dragon Quest cheats a lot, they fit it all into here. These are just 3 colors, and they use it to the best of their abilities, and they use the combinations of stuff. Because, like, these 2 together feel different than these 2 together. This one they do weird. They switch the colors around. And I think that might just be because of sprite stuff. Because the pink is being used as a darker color there, but they make it work. Because this like makes no sense color like light wise, and it's an after the fact, but like you don't think of it that much. And once again, you have your eyeballs going from this into this into this. This has a different feel next to this than being next to this. This feels a lot darker than it is over here because this is just surrounded by light stuff. And probably on a CRT it looks even more different. And just having some highlights in here, keeping this mostly the same color. They didn't do it because, well, they don't have much of a choice, I think, with the color palette. But giving it some depth and some highlights, just, yes. Make things look different. Okay, buddy, come over here. And this is just a recolor of one of these guys, but still using the same techniques. So if I would say anything out of this for specifically using a single palette and not using sprite bullshit, is 2 colors that could be used, or 3 colors that could be used in a ramp. That you could say that one is darker next to another. Otherwise, like this one right here, you have 2 colors that could be used, like this is shade, this is a color, and then you have something that is standing out that can be read as something else entirely, but is the same thing. Skelly Bro getting an upgrade, and now because of using different colors, it's still doing the trick. Like, you can maybe say that there's some armor on it, but it still does the trick with this looking like it's still the same leg. It's not like anything else. What are you? Oh, you're a gargoyle. Or that. And you fight a little bird. You have some gin in here. There's a troll. Hey, look. Totally not a mind flayer. Totally didn't get called something else. Pisca demons? Pisca demons, I think you're getting your name too. Hydra. Hey, buddy. Looking like you might literally stun somebody and then suck their brains out. Literally what they do. And I find it hilarious. Just some dinosaurs. I mean, like, I'm saying the same thing. Like, literally, they have a midtone. So they're using a transitional color as a midtone in here so that it isn't so sharp. Which they weren't doing before, but as I said, like, you either do 3 colors in a ramp, or you do 2 colors that are light and dark, and then a third color to stand out things. But they were able to cheat in this color as the lightest part of it, and use it as, like, teeth and eyes. This guy's so big he has to kneel down. I think he's just a giant. Sunken Shrine. There's things I want to get to, but they're at towards the bottom. I don't know what you are. You're a vampire. So this is the 2 colors, and they reused the high of the cloak as the skin. Because they're just using a ribbon of it. You read it as highlight, but this they read as the same color as being its own thing. And then they have the highlight being the hair so that it can stand out more. Another one of these things. Now we get to the bosses. And so you start out. Hey, this is a really tall guy. Okay, it's still humanoid size. Like, if you had the other ones, it would be like, you know, about equal. The Dark Elf. Then you get like, oh, these guys are massive. But compared to what was before, like, this guy is not as... This guy is about as big as Dragon Quest enemies. But he's supposed to be massive. Like... Did I not copy him? Oh, yes. Layers. Nope, nope. I want to copy from here, not the entire layer. Okay, paste it. Like, a lot of Dragon Quest enemies were actually like, you know, 3x3. He's only slightly bigger, but he's supposed to be considered massive compared to the player character. Because player character is that big. Huh, you're kind of weird. And then we have everybody's favorite mecha that will destroy you with antimatter. And then the boss. And then the boss you have to, as I said, you start the game. Start the game. Maybe you don't have it be as complex, but you have to have something to get you in. Like, Final Fantasy, I think, kind of fails at that. But the ending, you have this massive thing against your Warriors of Light. And when he dies... They actually wrote code to mess with the textures to, like, dissolve him, which became a mainstay in so much more Final Fantasy, and also, like, in modern, like, enemies being defeated thing. Now for the fun stuff. Looking kind of Beholder there, my dude. And I don't know what they censored. I assume that they put another strap for the Medusa. Yeah, they put another strap for the Medusa. That is a really good Beholder sprite for the limitations, because they aren't doing too much sprite trickery with this. It is literally just 3 colors and black. But because they sit this color, which is the same as this, in a sea of red. It becomes kind of a highlight, and it does not look like that color, because this is sitting next to black, this is sitting next to blue. You read it as a different color, like not part of this. And then like down here, the ramp is like, hey, either these are just like weirdly colored tentacles or whatever, or they're just like darker of the brown. So the ramp in this case is like, you know, black, that, and then they do a weird move into blue, which they've done before, and I guess it kind of works. I guess really the real one is this one back here, because this is like the original one, and you know, they just do a recolor. And they keep moving colors around till, you know, like it works. Like this one makes more sense of a color thing. Like this does too, like this is lighter. But the red's kind of the same value as the brown. I actually might, yeah, I would even like think the brown's a little deeper, but yeah. Like actually, like you could go both ways. You could say like, oh no, this is actually the deeper color of that. But when you put these two together, you can have like, huh, could this actually be like, maybe this is just an accent color. And I'm thinking about this too much. Like, could you say this is like the deepest of this? Like, if I corner off this section right here and go, whoops. Aha, it helps if I'm in the correct layer. If I section this off and then go like, does that read? No, okay, purple is definitely the accent color on this. Though, you can use... I will eat my crow. So... this is being used as the darker of both of these. Like you see it here. And purple doesn't interact with white that much. It becomes its own thing. As I said, like, this is effectively... blah. This is effectively its own thing compared to the rest. But yeah. This almost works. This doesn't work as well. But yeah. This big dude, you gotta end with a big dude. You gotta end with something that's very interesting. If you fight like a normal enemy at the end, he better have his special effects up everywhere. Alright. So, am I going to do what I was thinking I'm going to do? I guess I'll do it a little bit. So given that, and given a SNES color palette, what can we do with it? Boop. So if I wanted to draw an Ina or something as like a Zelda sprite, what could I come up with from it? So the shield is there. We can ignore the shield for now. Let's just have sprite going around. Let's clear up some of this so I can look at my in sources. Main thing you would need to have in there. Ina's probably a terrible choice, but it is a good one to break down to things. So I'm going to bring up a reference for me. Because I think the most thing that's going to kill me is her dress is very complex for what it is. But I think it's technically a lot of skin on her for the top half. So we have to settle on colors. We have to settle on 4 colors hard. So we're going to have a choice here. Do we want to have her halo involved? Like, we could put it in and there's a separate thing. But so far we need to have a skin color. Works well enough. We need to have her dress color, which is technically a purple, but also orange. We need to get rid of the orange probably. So we have our purple. We can choose also this purple if we want. That's probably the better choice. Her hair is also purple. So what's left? Technically, there's a white in there. We can ignore that because we're going to just use skin. We don't have enough room. We either get the white or we get the orange in there. And I would say that maybe we do get her halo with an orange because it's part of her halo, or part of her hairband part. So anyways, Link tile is about half the size. Okay. Head that big. And we say dress goes down to here. We will fix things in a second, but I just need that outline. Does Link even have his arm? Yeah, I guess Link has hands like that. She has a sleeveless dress, so something like that. Now the bottom of her dress is orange. So we will incorporate that like that. Have that. And then she has bare legs down into shoes. Which, how's Link go? Yeah, Link is a step type, so like that and like that. Basis of right there. Now I need to do the hair, which is going to be terrible for this model. For this sprite. So like that. And the side locks we can't have go into the dress. Because same color. Long hair is also going to be an issue too. Because she has hair that goes down to her knees. But we can just like have like that a little bit. And just keep it like that. I'm saying that a lot. Link eyes. Don't know if I could do what is done over there. Because it'd be something like this. I don't have the color to go with it. Because he's using brown and green. And I don't have all the brown and green. That kind of works, though. Here's a mouth. Can use that. And now for hair flaps. Something like that. Let's make them cute. Let's go down like this. I think they need to be up higher. So let's have that right there. Make them 6x6. Sure. Now we could cheat in the halo because we had to bring in the orange because we didn't have much other choice. So 1, 2, 3. Boop. Unless we bring the head down. I think, couldn't we bring everything down? Oops. Get you. Get you. That's a little too small. We want forehead. Okay. Like that. Now, we can cheat a little bit on the leg stuff. And it might just work. No, I don't think it works. I think we have to go that they're both bare. We can't get her wings in. We don't have enough stuff. Like, we could try and do like this and, you know, say that's wings, but then that blends into that. Why I'm using a Zelda sprite instead of other things? Because I think it's funny. Technically, Dragon Quest would work off the same sort of stuff. Okay. And walk animation would literally be flip. Frame properties, 30. And because this is a sprite, I will take this as walking. Down. If I could spell. Alright. Boop, 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 boop. I don't think Link had any sort of other motion. No, he did. He raised his arm. His arm kind of went up and, or went back and forth. So, foot forward equals other arm forward. So, something like... Whoops, nope. I don't want to do both. And then we have this come back in like this, maybe? Nope. I want to copy this. I don't want to copy that frame. Okay. Boop. No, wait, it was the other side. Yeah, the leg's back, it should be... okay, let's... We can fix this. Everything's not terrible. There we go. Okay. Boop, boop. Oh, now I got an extra hair in there. The arm's a little big and terrible. So let's shave off that. I mean, we're going with cute girl. So keep girl cute. So there we go. Basic walking animation. 2-frame. Now, the real cheating begins. So we copy everything. We make a new frame. Well, we could just make a new frame here. Drag you out of there. And for back animation, the standard is you take it and you draw it backwards. So now, everything becomes hair. And since Ina has the halo, which is a saving grace, we can make the rest of the halo. The one issue with her having so much hair is that you lose out on everything, but it works. I will say, make an executive decision that hand going forward goes up more, and like this. And I guess we could flare the hair out a little bit. Maybe, no, that's good. Now she looks like a taco. Okay. Okay, duplicate this frame. Flip it around. New tag. Up. Okay. So that works. It could be, you know, better. Her hair just covers everything. But the halo saves some stuff. Now, here's going to be the hard part. So we want to duplicate this sucker, because I want to reuse it. Now, sideways. This adds a lot of nose to it, but it's on the left-hand side of here. So, cheap thing to do. Does he actually keep the... Do they keep the mouth? They don't keep the mouth. Okay, let's delete everything over here. Move this over. Move this to be slightly more forward. And we're going to give the hair that to go with. Oh, wait. Oh, I forgot. We could do this. Why didn't I do it? There we go. Okay. Now back over here. The side locks are there. We need to bring back the face a little bit to have that. And we probably can just do that for the side. And Link has indistinguishable steps, so he has a middle step. So let's bring... Nope, that I'll say that works. He has a weird hand thing going on, but let's just say, like... That looks sort of cute. I'll go with it. Let's do the halo. First, let's make the head do that. We're losing the ears, the flaps here. So we're moving them back like that. Because there's not much else to do. So back here, we just do that for... Now, Link brings his hand forward. I'm not sure I'll need to do that. What I'm really looking at is the feet here, because it is a full step. So, move this about like here. Make a clone of it. Whoops. Make a clone of it. Put it out about here. And I think I'm going to move this back a bit. And put out a leg in in that direction. There's going to be too much flickering, so I think I'm going to move all this over. Get rid of that. Move the hand a little bit forward in order to... Okay, let's say that this is hand fully down. We could say steps, she moves hand up. Okay, let's... Whoops. I hit the wrong button. M, please. Work with me. I'm not asking a lot today. So, let's take these as... walk. Horizontal. Okay, if I hit this, how terrible is it? Not too bad. I think I want to move this back one, though. Link solves some of this by having a lot more colors, but I am lacking the pixel room to give Ina her choker. Part of it is that... Well, I could also just like make this like this. To show that later that... Does that work? Now she just looks like she has a really big head. Guess if we do that, it works better. Yeah. Nope, you're supposed to be 5. Get over there. And you go to 4. So, kind of a Zelda sort of Ina. Now, let me try Earthbound, because I'm kind of... These are kind of wild sprites for player characters for me. My mouse is gone. There we go. That was weird. What are you, Ninten? You aren't even. Oh no, how big are you? Okay, you are 16 by 16. You scared me for a second. Okay, you're all 16 by 16. So, 16 by 16 again. We have our colors picked out. I don't think they're changing. You are using a bit of cheaty because you have the hat. And that's specifically a thing because you needed the hat. So will I be allowed to cheat with orange? I think I have to more cheat by having black. So which of these colors are the most important? Black. So we have a very lemon-shaped head. That's the wrong layer. Mistakes were made. It's over. Move you down. Let's look at a character of hair. Yeah, they just use the same color as their outfit, which works in this case. So this is a very outlined style. So I can't go up to the edge. I think I'm just going to have to give her a straight Hime cut on this. And then we fill in with this. They use black dots for everything. I guess I will too. They actually have smile? They have smile. Or they have that at least. Then the body is as cheap as possible. Disgustingly cheap T-shape. That actually, I don't think I'll need to delineate between that, but I just need to kind of like do this. And then, as I said before, Earthbound is literally based upon feet really raised. And then you have tiny little version over here. What the arm's doing? They're coming out. Like that. My God. I don't think this one works as well. Whoops, that's not the thing I want. I don't know if there's much else I can do besides like cheat in Halo. Like maybe this would save some of it. Also, technically, as I said. So I think I'm going to call this one a bust. But it's interesting to try and figure out. If I had more colors and like went to SNES palette, which maybe I'll do at a later time, because I mostly focus on NES with a little extra and how I do sprites, I might be able to fit this all in, but alas, no. This one worked out pretty well. I think I will make a little sprite of it, or GIF, a GIF. Okay, let's move YouTube back. New frame. Though it is very interesting to see that Zelda didn't use an outline, because most games use an outline because they didn't think of in terms of background colors should be like very dark and distinguishable from foreground colors so that you could have the color bleed to the edge. Zelda doing that is interesting because I think they more or less try to get as much color and they didn't want to use black outlines. That's what I would believe. I don't know anything more than that. And, okay, good. That one. Cheat to win. I said cheat to win. There we go. A little Lena sprite. She lacks a sword. But a little spriting based on like some of the ideas given in there, which is really pack it in there. I think I am going to call it a day for this one. Chat is dead. Rest in peace, chat. I will possibly look up tomorrow what the heck is going on or see if anybody else talks about these issues, because chat is dead because browser just wasn't loading it. And I don't know what to do. Maybe YouTube changed something. Anyways, with that, I want to say thank you for joining this. Next week, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think I have any solo stuff, so maybe I will just try doing a model. I have an idea for doing a model. Instead of trying to do more pixel art, more low res, and actually trying to do my painterly stuff that I do with art. See how that goes. Much larger on the scale, less upscaling. So which is to say I do a more proper scale, more proper size art on the base, on the start. We'll see. Either way, thank you for joining. And have a lovely time of day. And I will see you next time. And there is no plugin to socials.